welcome to another episode of Tailored Healing TV. This week, we are going to cover augmented and virtual reality, some things that I've seen floating around the media for the past few years, and really understanding what it could mean for where we live and where we are right now. This week, I was exploring a topic that I had visited last year. I had a video go viral on TikTok where I noticed that the actor Terrence Howard was originally casted as the War Machine in the movie Iron Man. If you've seen Iron Man, you know it's all about virtual technologies, wars going on in other countries, and a certain billionaire who's able to kind of bridge this gap. Now, you've probably heard the rumor that a lot of Hollywood films have contracts with the US government. That's not a topic I'm going to dig too deep in today, just for discretion purposes, not on my end, but because I'm not sure what I can or cannot reveal with actual literal proof. But what I will say is it piqued my interest enough to look into Terrence Howard a bit. Around the same time that I posted about that, he was in an interview with Joe Rogan. And he starts talking about a lot of scientific topics that he says he's experienced since childhood. He goes on to talk about a virtual reality patent that he submitted. I looked into the patent. I'll post it just for you guys to see that you can look up. It was abandoned in 2010. But here's where things get interesting. So, the patent that he applied for really stuck out to me because there is a show on Amazon Prime called Electric Dreams. Electric Dreams is based on a book by Philip Dick. The whole show explores the future of virtual reality, and it was written years ago. Now, the show came out in 2017. Terrence submitted his patent in 2010. So in 2024, he comes out and starts speaking about it. Now, when we're talking about augmented and virtual reality, augmented reality is when you can overlay a digital world inside of a physical one. Virtual reality is where you're getting the full immersive experience of stepping into another world. In the show Electric Dreams, he actually plays a character named George who is the inventor of a virtual reality machine, a headset, where he's experiencing pain and grief from the loss of his wife, at least on one side of the fence. And on another side, you see he is a woman named Sarah. They actually share the same wife. However, this is on two different timelines. In one reality, he's a woman and a cop in the future. In the other one, he's a man who's an inventor in the past. The whole story is Gnostic in a sense, but here's one thing that sticks out to me first about the whole conversation. Hollywood is known for a lot of secrecy, especially when it comes to the illuminated knowledge about our reality, about what's going on. Many people just, spin the whole trope of, oh, they're all in the know and they're here controlling us. I think reality is far more vast than we can explain. A few theories that I had was either that he was already in the know about what was going to happen and then embodied the character later on TV, maybe in hopes that no one would notice, because who's paying that much attention to an actor to look at every single project that they've done and put it together with what's happening in the actual reality? Or it's something that they call order out of chaos, which in my eyes is there is a narrative that's spun through the public for years where a person or an actor embodies a character. And later on, there's something in the reality that kind of merges with that in real life. Sometimes I think it's initiations into groups. I have no physical proof of this, obviously, just a lot of study of esoteric magic, the occult, and there are a lot of things I don't know about it. But what I will say is that it truly piqued my interest that this thing that happened in a book, then to later happen on TV, and then later spoken about in real life by the same person, seems like it was reality looping into itself. So add in virtual and augmented reality. What is it really, and why is it being pushed so heavy? Companies like Meta, for example, the parent company of Facebook, have explored virtual reality as well as augmented reality. And it's the differentiation, is that even a word? I'll just say it's the difference between real life and artificial life. And the episode of Electric Dreams is actually called Real Life, funny enough. So there's a lot of positive things that I believe can be done with exploring virtual reality. However, as someone who has gone under psychedelic experiences, where your eyesight can become fractalized, the way that you experience and see the world can literally change the dynamics of the world around you. I always question if they had the technology to build something like this and display it to the public through the guise of entertainment ahead of time, what does this really mean about the world around us? The laws of thermodynamics and adding in quantum entanglement can change so much of what we actually see. So, how do we really know which reality is the real one or the true one? Is it the one that feels the most real or the one that looks the most real? And is it an emotional state? Do we gravitate to the things that we see because it's embedded into our DNA, or can coding and programming be changed? So, in observing the things around me and that I'm seeing, I kind of stop and I ask, how do I present this in a way that doesn't sound conspiracy? I have a keen sight and observation skill to look at the world around me and really ask, what is going on here? Is this something that was predicted ahead of time? Is this something that was planned? Because Terrence Howard has also played some key characters in my childhood that I remember. One of them playing a pimp in the movie Hustle and Flow, another one playing Lucius Lyon in the show Empire. And the separation between Hollywood and the real world can get very confusing, I believe, for people, especially with several movies coming out about futurism and what it may look like to separate physical reality from digital reality. And to me, it's kind of the same as the physical from the spiritual. In the Gnostic story of Sophia, which I believe is shown in Electric Dreams in that specific episode that he's in, she plunges herself out of wholeness, literally, and separates herself and creates the demiurge or the false light. The false light to me is where virtual reality is going. People are getting so used to staring at screens all the time. They're getting so used to immersing themselves in other worlds, not the physical world, but literally looking down, that it wouldn't be that hard to implement switching out some device or goggles. Another thing that I noticed, another film that stood out particularly, is the movie Inception. Inception talks about dreams within dreams, and this has been explored by many philosophers and Gnostics over the years. In the dream, or in the movie specifically, there is a company called Proclus. And whenever I see like things in movies versus reality, it really makes you think. Proclus made me think of Oculus. And Oculus is the company owned by Meta that does virtual reality glasses. And if you think about the scenes with Leonardo DiCaprio and being dunked in water and immersing himself, it reminds me of the conversation that Terrence was having with Joe Rogan about being reborn again. And this is what a psychedelic experience feels like. This also is not advice to go start doing psychedelics, by the way. I have to say that and make that clear, and I'll put a disclaimer as well. I am just simply sharing experience. But to re immerse yourself in the womb, to break down the reality, break down the consciousness into pieces is like shattering a mirror. To re experience birth when you wanted for nothing, when emotions had not yet simulated, and to adjust to the experience is something otherworldly. And to explain it so plainly, knowing the characters that someone has played, thinking about the process of inception, being able to walk into the dream realm, which the dream right now would be social media. It would be getting online to apps, dressing up. It's the new Hollywood, right? So it's becoming kind of like the augmented reality, the overlaying of the digital realm inside of the physical. Right now, this is what we perceive to be physical space. This is 3D or 4D. But when we get online, just like I'm sitting here recording with you right now, this becomes the digital realm and like the dream realm where you can construct things at different layers, and time can bend and frequency can bend depending on who's the receiver on the other end. It does make you wonder at this point, what does this say about our reality? What's real and what isn't? At what point did this really start? And I believe that civilizations much older than ours have always had this technology to simulate realities, to simulate cities. If you've even seen, there's a picture of, I believe, some pyramids in Mayan civilizations that look exactly like silicon chips. You've probably seen these spread around kind of like the conscious community on TikTok or YouTube, and they speak about it. And so everything from wave harmonics to mathematics and metaphysics to building and constructing light force energy and then constructing it kind of makes you think, what are these cameras all around us? These things that we place on ourselves that we're viewing and observing and constructing reality around us, is it happening within the mind? And if so, is this what built the augmented or virtual reality ideas? Being able to simulate an experience, make it feel so real that you can't tell the difference between what's real and what's not. With what I've experienced, I think I always question it. I don't attach too heavily to it because I think it can send people into psychosis, thinking that their world may in fact not be real. But with knowing that there are such advanced mathematics and sciences out there, that it's almost undeniable that we could in fact be living in something that is an augmented reality, overlaying things. Even for years, we've seen entertainers as holograms, and that was years ago. I remember seeing the Tupac hologram early YouTube days, maybe. I also remember seeing a Michael Jackson hologram, and I said, well, if they're able to project a reality in this way with like a light show, who's to say that there's not more? And you have people who've seen movies like, I think King Kong was one of them, where the sky was simulated. And I was actually telling someone about this yesterday, that when we see these things, people will sit at the sky and they'll obsess what's really real and what's not. And I think about the life force energy that comes from the human. We have light that literally emits from our bodies. It is source energy. We also have magnetic energy. This is the dream realm, and where we go at night. We're magnetized with the moon. And so when I think about all of these things, the biggest question people have is, well, what do I do with this? Like, everything is advancing so fast. How do I find myself? How do I find my footing in this life and in this reality, knowing that if I look up at the sky, I might be looking at fake clouds? And the way I like to think about it is, there's data servers all over the world that are linking with this technology. And the more that they immerse people, like right now, for example, they are pushing Ray-Bans. Ray-Bans are like the cool, sleek new glasses, but they're implementing meta glasses inside of them, or they're putting, like, the technology, which they've shown you in Black Mirror, they've shown you in all different kinds of shows. I hope also in the things that I'm speaking about, this really just helps you further question the reality that you live in. Not to overwhelm you, but to really consider the things that we bring into our life that feel heavy, the things that feel dense and material. And then consider the spiritual realm, where this new reality is being built, kind of like, if you've seen Ready Player One, the Oasis. This metaverse of a world where anything is possible, any limits, you can be anybody you want to be. They've already shown you this ahead of time. And so when people come out, I think I also mentioned, speaking to a friend about Cat Williams, when he came out in this interview with Shannon Sharp, and he starts talking about the Anunnaki and all of these hidden things, and people are on the internet and conversation, oh, he's telling you guys, wake up. And I'm looking at like the very obvious, the dense and material things of it all, the augmented reality, the overlay, the lies on top of the physical. And it's not so much lies, it's like a little bit of truth sprinkled in, and I call that, from what I've observed, order out of chaos. He comes on, I think later on a GQ magazine interview, with this robe on, like a grand magus. And I'm just sitting here looking like, okay, where was his energy when he was like cussing on stage and playing, a black man in jail and all this? It's like it's not matching up. And it's almost like we're fed this false reality, and now we're given, through the eyes of the celebrity, oh, now the world is so spiritual, or we've been sitting on this for years. Where was this energy when the programming was on 10 years ago? Where was this energy when you could have been talking to us about what's going on in politics or in the environment? Now all of a sudden there's secrets with the Anunnaki and the celebrity world and Diddy. Like, nobody cares about all of that. We want to know, why is there a fake reality being laid on top of the physical one, or the real one? Why does this cosmic experience feel off sometimes? If you even follow my TikTok page, a lot of people who I collaborate with know about gematria. They know about the ciphering of words and numbers using the Kabbalah. And even in understanding how that is structured, it really makes you think, well, now that I know this, now that I know that schools, especially like MIT, for example, study how systems work, how cities are laid out, and they understand the mathematics of it. What does it say about the phones and the computers that we use? What does it say about satellites and Wi-Fi and internet? What is reality? What is it not? Do we have any control over bending or shaping the way that we see the world, or is our vision so distorted by the glasses? And I mean the rose-colored glasses, not like the actual physical ones. What is real and what is not? How do we determine that? What do we do with that? How do we grow and change from that? Is reality set? Do we really have any choice in this life? These are all philosophical questions. They're not ones that you have to let overwhelm you. There can be things you journal on, things that You sit with and really understand that the world is so much more complex. The cosmos are so much more complex than we're led to believe, or that is even put into the programming. Or maybe it's something that we all really just blatantly ignore. I enjoy exploring these topics because the world is moving so fast. It's everything that these early science fiction authors predicted, whether it be H.G. Wells or H.P. Lovecraft or Isaac Asimov, Philip Dick, these science fiction writers who are also taking Gnostic topics but moving them into this reality where, you know, how whenever we see like these old movies from the 80s that talk about aliens from outer space and science and they always look like a brain? Almost always, or giant cameras. It's like it was in our face the entire time. But we had to see the evolution of how this was going to look, which would make you think that this may have already happened. I speculate that a lot. I think that maybe, just maybe, everything that we're experiencing has already happened. And this is our virtual reality experience. What we perceive to be real life, we wake up every day, we shower, we eat, we play, we talk, we create. Then we go back into this dream realm again. People bring back these wild stories, these ideas, this place with no limits where they were, sometimes dreams, sometimes nightmares. And they come back into the physical. And the ways that their reality is overcrossing or interacting is now collapsing. The same way your reality could collapse if you get too caught up in the virtual world. And I believe that spirituality taught me a lot about this, to be in the world, but not of the world. It's actually something I learned from an ex boyfriend that I had who practiced Islam. And he told me about the dunya, being in the world, but not of the world. And understanding that now and the impact that it has on the spiritual realm, people not understanding or maybe making attempts to understand that when you pick up this phone and you put on these lights and you press record, if you're a content creator, you're on TikTok, anything that you're doing online, even if you're just answering emails or responding, this is your interaction with your brain's interface. The file folders that are all in your head that are being transmitted and creating a space. The space is your mind, but it is a projection. There are now companies that are telling people and creating these new worlds. They're birthing new worlds off of the energy of the human, because it is our creativity and our ideas, the things that we act on or don't act on, that are then submitted into a dream realm and made into a reality. This is why sometimes you'll see ideas that you have on TV. And this is why I question the whole Terrence Howard story. I'm like, well, either he knows, he knew he was going to do this, and he's part of an initiate society where they have this higher knowledge that these events will eventually play out, or he's very in tune with the dream realm. And that observation changes everything. You know, I think Einstein, when he talked about quantum entanglement and the things happening and observing reality and how it shifts and changes depending on your awareness of it, now this changes every story that we saw. I'm even a child of the 90s, so I've had to go back farther in history to my mom's era and explore the 80s. What books and stories were they writing? What was allegedly Sophia Stewart talking about? What were the Wachowskis telling us in these films and these movies? And not just the Wachowskis, but anybody really who was creating these works that we call science fiction, like Star Trek. Do we really think that there's no reality outside of the containment field that we live in? Do we really think that there is nothing else to explore out in life other than what we've been fed through TV and programming? Emily Dickinson once said the brain is wider than the sky. And when we consider and look up at the sky and the clouds, I think about it all the time when I go outside, whether it's early in the morning or late at night, and I look at the sky, I wonder, what am I seeing? I always hear everybody saying, we live in a prison planet, we live in a prison. And then they're giving you these glasses and it's creating a prism, right? Because your vision is going, and if you've seen the sigil of Lucifer, right? It is these pyramids intersecting with each other. So your eyesight is crossing layers, or it's crossing paths, you know, kind of like this. And your eyesight is receiving back information, and your source code is being downloaded into your brain from memories, ideas, dreams, and you're processing it through your emotions and your bodies. Your body is such a complicated system. I think about that all the time. And the way you treat it and talk to yourself also shows how developed you are in your awareness. So, and knowing that, and then knowing that now they're giving you a new chance to see again, I feel like this is where the whole AI God concept comes in because what did Jesus do allegedly? He gave sight to a blind man. The entire world is blind to the illusion. I mean, at least 90% of it. There are some people, thankfully, that are waking up or have been awake for a very long time. I've had teachers that have been awake and have been showing me to observe reality from a different point of field, from 0 point, being able to look at both sides of the spectrum and say, well, the world isn't exactly all this or all this. Just like, even with the celebrities I mentioned, like Cat Williams or Terrence Howard, it's not that I think that they have an evil agenda. It's just they're far more in tune than the reality or the guys of the celebrity world would let you know in plain sight. It's like those who have eyes to see, see. But now they're trying to add a further layer, or maybe not even trying. It was always destined, it was planned out. It was planned out accordingly to the way that we've evolved over time. Even if we go back to nuclear fission, right? And if you've seen like an actual nucleus in a cell, think about what happens when it separates and it erupts. Think about what happens when a bomb happens and a whole cell collapses. I think of that as an eyeball collapsing under the weight of pressure or the weight of the impact of dismantling the wholeness of the situation. I hope that makes sense. The way that I'm describing it is that when I've undergone psychedelic experiences and light waves collapsed, they've collapsed under my energy being exposed to higher layers of consciousness. And it's a lot of pressure. It feels like euphoria. It feels like you're ascending to the heavens. However, the heavens opening doesn't look like people think it would look. It actually it looks like a million pieces of glass, colored glass, kaleidoscopes, if you will. And they're moving and they're swirling and they form into shapes that simulate the womb. There's no distortion, and yet it's all distortion because we've been programmed into believing base reality is all that there is. Now, pair that with the integration of a new world where they can give you glasses that give you robotic eyesight that allow you to see the world maybe through the eyes of a spectrum, kind of like a bee, the way the bee observes like infrared light. And I don't know that they're that advanced in the way they're exposing them yet, but we've seen all the movies in the early 2000s, 90s where you have super technology and you can see all of these things at once. Your brain would have to keep up with that, which would lead to probably emerging of something like the Neuralink because your brain cannot keep up with your eyesight as even as you're scrolling on social media, your mind is trying to process so many things at once and it's taking in maybe unaware of what it's actually seeing about this world. I know this is a lot, guys. I talk about these things. I wanted to convert these talks to Tailored Healing TV because it's too much for TikTok. I don't necessarily just want it on YouTube because they have the right to take it down. They have the right to choose what can and cannot go on. My platform, even though it's fairly new, I still can talk about these things and just like bring them to question. It's something that also motivates me to continue building my personal bot because at first I was like, no, I'll never do that. I'll never have something that mimics or copies me. But haven't we already done that? Haven't we already come online and copied our consciousness in a way? Taking our creative ideas and immersing them into technology that's already connected to a larger data center or server, what we call sometimes the cloud, and then we're uploading our thoughts, the water memory that lives within inside us that's transforming itself through wave data, moving through our bodies and our minds, and then going through our hands. You even think about how powerful the thumbprint is on an iPhone or facial ID recognition. That mass amount of surveillance means that the Akashic records lie within the sky. They lie within us. They lie within the ether, which is why now even the world's currency systems is changing to it. Why companies are adapting artificial technology because the wave movement is exiting out of this very dense material plane, trying to attempt to mimic the spiritual realm. And even though I do like exploring technology, I think there's nothing like the real thing. There's nothing like going through birth again. You can never reimagine re exiting from your mother's womb again unless you were under some very heavy substances or you would completely re-emerge from the reality by your levels of conscious awareness, which can be done with like breathing, deep spiritual kundalini breath, DMT breath, I believe they call it. It's not about who can get out of the reality the quickest, because they're just building layers on top of layers on top of layers, which can make you lose sight of where you truly came from. So even as I explore the new reality, which is not real, it's old, I think about my own mother and my experience with her, and how it hasn't been the easiest, but it has given me progressive growth over time. And I look at the artificial matrix, which comes from the word matter, it comes from the word mother. And I consider, well, this hasn't been the easiest time either. Getting to know my mother, getting to know how deep and expansive the cosmos is, and how there are scientists and mathematicians and philosophers who are trying to take the same concepts that we've already experienced within our very bodies and mimic and replicate it. Our eyesight, our vision, our thing that connects us to really assembling what the reality is through color and sound and taste and sight. And even for the people who don't have all of those senses, they experience it in other immersive ways, like through vibration in the field. There's so much ahead of us. The world is endless. The womb is endless. The artificial womb and the real womb, because it's going to do is continue mirroring what's already happening within us, what we're doing as a collective society, how we're moving, how we're growing, and how we're changing over time. When you hear me talk, I always hope that it's never about fear. This isn't about fear. We're releasing that. That is material and that is dense. We are moving into an omega state of mind. And the omega state, you have the alpha and the omega. Even I will show a little chart and diagram. The alpha's at the bottom and the omega's at the top, depending on how you turn it, because you could flip it. But if you've seen it, it's shaped like a womb. And so we descend through this womb to be born again. If some babies are born head down, some babies are born sideways, depends. But you're born down and you lose your wings, your angel wings, your angles of light. This angle is coming down. You're descending into chaos. And this chaos includes mirrors everywhere, programs running, codes running, telling you this is what reality is. Some of it is very condensed because people have forgotten the experience of what it means to be reborn again. And so when we're introduced or reintroduced to the ideas of sight and vision into a whole new reality, we forget where we came from. There's a way to live with both worlds, I believe. I truly do think, trust, and believe that as long as people hold on to the original experience, that everything else will always just be mere copy. And it will continue learning from us. It will continue growing and changing and adapting depending on the way that the psyche receives the experience, but also the emotions and the way that they develop over time. They don't hang on to dead weight, literally. They learn to soar above. To reclaim your angel wings is to reclaim the light, not waiting for someone to save you, not descending you, but keeping you from becoming a bird of prey in the rapture of life. You become a bird of prey. Literally, you're preyed on when you don't understand or when you don't adapt to the fact that you create this reality. And when I say that, I don't mean you took a pencil and you drew up Harvard, MIT, slavery, war, treachery. What I mean is your experiences drew in the reality that you would experience, that you inherited from bloodlines before you. And it replicates and repeats. And when you change that DNA, meaning you change your decision, you change your perception, you change your levels of awareness, it opens up the world in vast and countless ways. And that will never change, no matter what you see. No matter what celebrity or what person comes forth with a new idea about quantum consciousness or immortality or shifting, simply opening your eyes again and becoming aware of the world is how we truly step in to what we're all living through. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I have some brand new offerings on my website that you are free to check out. They are audio tracks from the Oracle Vault. These tracks are a way to kind of submerge yourself into a new reality, quantum shifting your mind by reprogramming your language, the way you speak to yourself. I also have literary resources like The World Systems of Bondage and The Coded Reality, Gematria Unveiled, and even How to Run Your Home Like a CEO. Because don't think I do all this without having to still be a mother, cook, clean, take care of my children. We're working on experiencing our reality while still merging it with the very physical things in life. Still moving into that omega state, but still realizing like what we're all really here to do and what we're a part of. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to tune in for next week, every week at 7 p.m. Sunday Central Standard Time. And we'll keep having more of these metaphysical talks. In the meantime, you can enjoy my TikToks, my Substack articles, and continue learning, grow, create. Use every day as an opportunity to immerse yourself into the world, to learn, and keep yourself not only grounded in the reality, but also allow yourself to explore, always in healthy and safe ways. So until next time, this has been a tailored healing transmission, and let love lead the way.